Cards, Mr. Holster here. Thought I'd make a little video here on what really seems to be very popular nowadays, these compact 9mm. I know this can be kind of weird because I don't have a bunch of guns here to show you for numerous reasons. Number one, I don't have every one of these guns, although I probably could borrow some from friends and places and get them all assembled. But by using blue guns, I don't have to sit here and show each one's not loaded and demonstrate they're safe, and I can bang them together and so forth and so on. So I'm not going to worry about them. I'm just going to use these blue guns from the holster operation, and some of them are in better shape than others. Some haven't been used yet. Some are new. Some are about ready to fall apart and are being in line to be replaced, and some of them are all taped up in the process of being used. So, but we're going to muscle through this because what I want to compare here is I just want to give a comparison of sizes. Now, basically, these are lined up by size right now, although that's not absolutely correct because there is a difference. Some of them are shorter, but yet longer in the slide, longer in the barrel and slide, but shorter in height. So it's hard to put them one in front of the other as to direct size, but this is pretty much how they set up. And we'll just start here with the PM9 Kahr as the smallest one. Then you go to the Beretta Nano. From there you go up to the LC9, which right now is available in an incredibly good gun called the LC9s Pro, which I highly recommend. You take a look at that if you're contemplating this size gun. From there, we're going to go up to the Smith & Wesson Shield, then the XDS, and then we're ending with the Glock Model 26, being the biggest of the bunch, but not the tallest of the bunch. It's got the longest slide and the thickest slide, but it is not the tallest one of these guns. It is actually an incredibly short gun from top of the sight down to the bottom of the grip panel. So let's start by comparing the first two. The smallest, I've got a Walther Ppk in the center. I thought I'd put that in the center because really that's what these guns are replacing. Back in the day, before all the really small compact 9mm were out there, the small definitive carry gun, concealed carry gun, or even used as a backup firearm for years, was the Walther Ppk. It is really a perfect size gun for that role. Of course, it's a 380, which is a lot less power than you're going to get out of these 9mm. And that's why these have become so popular. They've been able to, with the advent of these polymer frames, make 9mm in a much smaller package, smaller even than almost the Walther Ppk. But as you're going to see, Walther Ppk is not that much larger than the smaller of these guns. So let's start over here with the Kahr PM9, and we'll just measure the slide from front to back. We'll try and do it down right at the bottom of the slide, so because some of these guns, they do have this a little beaver tail on the frame, receiver frame, that comes out and makes them a little bit longer. So we'll just kind of eyeball that. Start here, and this one is about, it's a little short of 5.5. Let's call it 5 3/8. I would say that's about 5 3/8. And then from the bottom to the top, if we go to the top of the sight, because it does have a pretty prominent sight on the back side of these, top of the sight to the bottom to where the magazine is 4 inches. So we got 4 inches and 5 3/8. Now this, we'll start here, and the slide is exactly 5.5. And from the top of the sight to the bottom on the Beretta Nano, it's 4 1/4. So we had on this 4 inches and 5 3/8. And here we've got 5 1/2 and 4 1/4. So you can see the Beretta Nano is considerably larger than the PM9, the Kahr PM9. Now if we go from the Beretta Nano up to the next biggest size, which is the Ruger L9S, I guess. It's the designation. LC9. LC9 and the LC9S. LC9 for the double action only version, LC9S for the striker fired version, and they have a new model out which is the LC9s Pro, which has no safety on right here. No slide safety. So the slide stop here. No slide safety, and it does not have a magazine disconnect. So when you take the magazine out, you can still fire that last round in the barrel, which some people like a magazine disconnect so they can pull the magazine out and not have to worry about accidentally discharging the firearm. And other people don't like a magazine disconnect because they want to be able to have the ability to use the gun when they do a reload, tactical reload. They want to take that magazine, maybe they've got 3 or 4 rounds left in the mag, they want to take it out and shove a new one in the midst of a firefight. And if they're in the midst of doing it and have to shoot the gun, they want to be able to shoot the gun while they got the magazine out. Or they're worried about getting in a struggle and having the magazine disconnect and totally lose the ability to use the gun. Some people are worried about getting in a struggle and want to be able to make the gun not usable by the person that's trying to grab it by disconnecting the magazine. So there's arguments both ways on it. So this one, it's got a pretty prominent beaver tail to the frame there. So we'll go down here to measure it, and we're looking at 6 inches. Pretty close to 6 inches. So you've jumped up a 1/2 inch in that slide frame length from end to end from the Beretta Nano. Even more, this was 5 3/8 on the Kahr, so now you're up another 5/8 of an inch jumping up to the Ruger. Now we're not going to measure, this is a removable finger plate on the magazine. We're going to assume they're all flat. We're going to not measure those extras, so we'll go down to the bottom of where the magazine will sit on this and up to the top of the slide, and it comes out at 4 1/2. This is 4 1/2 inches tall, where the Beretta Nano was 4 1/4, and we're 4 inches. We're going up a 1/4 inch on each one of these. 4 1/2 inches by 6. So that's how much we've jumped up on the Ruger. Okay, now we're going to go to the Smith & Wesson Shield. The Smith & Wesson Shield, it again has quite a prominent tang beyond the back of the slide there. So we'll measure there. And here we're coming at 6 inches. Here we're identical. The Shield is basically identical on the slide to the Ruger. Now the distance on the bottom, this has the 8-round extended mag in this blue gun. So we're going to take it down to where the magazine, if it were the flat plate one, would be, and take it up to the top of the slide, which is kind of hard to tell because I've got this built-in sight rail I've put on there for making holsters. We're about 4 3/4. So here we were at 4 3/4. These two guns are almost absolutely identical in the height and distance. Now you start looking at some of the other things, and you can see the Shield's got a taller slide frame situation than the Ruger does. And it's got a little bit shorter situation in the back almost. They're pretty close to the same there. Thickness is, a little bit wider on the bottom of the grip maybe on the Ruger. It's got this little flare out for your palm, where this one isn't quite as flared out, but it's flared out too. These are pretty darn close, which really does... I mean, I've shot both these guns, and I never really even paid attention to it, how close, because they look so totally different, really. They do look totally different. But they are almost identical, really, when you get down to it. These two are almost identical in shape and size. Even on the trigger guards up front, they are fairly similar. And of course, your mag release, it's a little nicer on that Smith & Wesson, a little better button than you got on the Ruger. But that is about it. Those are fairly similar in size. Okay, so we'll go from the Shield, we're going to go up to the XD. So let's measure the XD. The XD is 6 1/4 inches. It's got quite a prominent little tang down here sticking out, and I think that's mostly because they have that grip safety back here. So if we measure it to that tang, you're at 6 1/4. So 6 1/4, and on these we were at 6 inches. So now we've jumped up in the XDS, which is available in a 9. I think it's available in a 40 nowadays too, but 9 and 45. I'll have to check and be sure. I think it's available in a 40 nowadays. So here, but I do know the 9 and 45 are absolutely identical size. Sometimes my memory is not so good on everything in the universe. 6 1/4, and our height in the back is 4 1/2. 6 1/4 by 4 1/2, and here we had 4 1/4. So we've gone up 1/4 inch here, unless I'm guessing wrong. Well, it's a little closer to 4 3/8. It's only an 1/8 inch taller. I'd say only an 1/8 inch taller. It's just got that prominent tang that makes it longer. These are pretty close, but the XD is just a little bit longer and a little bit taller. Put them that way. See, that's why I don't want to use real guns, because I'm just pointing them at myself here. See, it's a little bit longer barrel slide situation, and it's just a hair. Just a hair taller because of the prominent sight, I think. Just a little bit. These three actually are pretty darn close to absolutely identical. The XD's just a hair bigger. That leaves us with the last one we're talking about here. It's the Glock 26, which also comes as a Glock 27 in a 40. So let's look at this. Let's start with the height of the gun, from the bottom of the grip to the top of the sight. You've got, it's 4 inches. 4 inches tall, which puts it absolutely identical to the Kahr PM9, the smallest gun here. The Glock 26 is as short as any of these guns we're looking at. So as for the butt sticking out in a holster, and for concealment of the butt, it is absolutely the shortest one out there, along with the Kahr PM9. So there you have the smallest. But when you look at the distance of the slide and the barrel, and you do have a little bit of a tang coming out here, beaver tail on that grip, or the frame, which takes us up to 6 1/4. So you're pretty, if I'm correct, this was 6 1/4 too. Yeah, so you're the same as the tallest of the bunch, the XD, or the tallest and the longest of the bunch. You're the same as the XD on the length of the barrel and the slide, and you're the same in the height as the smallest. So the Glock is covering both ends of the spectrum, which is kind of interesting. Personally, my personal opinion on concealing a handgun, the barrel length is actually an advantage. The longer the barrel, the better the sight radius, the easier to bring it back on target fast, easier to get the picture of the sight in because the longer radius. It sits better in a holster because the more barrel length you have in front of the trigger guard, which is where most of the retention is in an automatic in a holster, the more barrel you have in front of it, the less leverage you can have by grabbing the grip in the back. The further the barrel goes, the better it sits in your holster because the more it's holding of the gun. So personally, I like the Glock in the fact that this barrel length and slide length are longer. That's a positive to me. And of course, you've got the short grip, but so in the concealment situation, it's not sticking out as far. So really, in my opinion, this one's the best of the bunch as far as size for concealment. Because these are not pocket pistols. These are going to end up in a holster. However, well, there's one thing we haven't taken in consideration in the size of these, and that is where the Glock comes in the worst. And that is the width of the gun. The width of this slide on the Glock is just under 1 inch. You could call it 1 inch. The XDS is, it's just a little over 3/4. So it's like a little less than 7/8 of an inch. The shield, I'd call, is the same, about 7/8 of an inch. The Ruger, again, LC9 or LC9s, whatever the case may be, they're both the same dimensions, the gun. Again, the same size, 7/8 or a little under 7/8. The Beretta Nano, again, almost the same size, about 7/8 or a little under. These are pretty close to all being the same right now. And the last one being the Kahr, I would call it as being, again, that same dimension, but it is just a tad thinner. Again, just a little under 7/8. This one, however, is visually just a tad thinner than these four. These four being the Beretta Nano, the LC9, Smith & Wesson Shield, Springfield XDS. The widths of the slide are almost all identical. The Kahr is just slightly under, and the Glock is at least 1/8 of an inch larger. So there, I don't know if that helps. There are the dimensions. A good comparison of the dimensions. I hope it's a good comparison. It's my comparison of the dimensions for you of these guns if you're looking at them. And these are all popular, except for I don't think the Beretta Nano is that popular. And of course, they're all a little different kind of trigger pull. These first three, the Shield, XDS, Glock, quite similar in the trigger pull. I think if you look at the Ruger, you're going to have two different trigger pulls. You've got the double action only of the LC9, or you got the striker fired version, which I think you're going to find if you look at the new striker fired one that's out in the Pro, it's a lot better trigger than these three. The Beretta has a very, very long, very, very stiff trigger pull, and I would say you best try it before you buy it because it stinks. And the last one, being the Kahr, is more of like a revolver. It's a double action only trigger pull. It's a nice smooth one, but it is like a double action only revolver. It's a long, deliberate trigger pull. So I would say if you're looking at this, you should pull the trigger on this too to see if you like it. These two are going to be dramatically different trigger pulls, as will the double action only version of the LC9 is dramatically different because that's basically a double action only revolver type trigger pull. So I'd test those to make sure you're comfortable with it before you buy. The striker version, so this one, the LC9, I think it's the LC9S, or maybe it's the LC9C, LC9S. The striker version of this is a very nice trigger pull, better than these. So these are all striker trigger pulls. If you pull a trigger on a Glock, that's basically what you're looking at. I think the Shield's a little bit better trigger pull than the others. It's a little different. It's a nice trigger pull. These are all good. I don't think you'd be disappointed with any of them. I think this new Pro version you'd really be happy with it. I tell you, I was really impressed by that gun. So, there you go. I hope I helped you some. I'm not an expert, just trying to put them all together here and do a little measuring there to give you an idea of what you're looking at. Maybe help you in your decisions in life, and maybe not. But thanks for tuning in. If you're not a subscriber, I wish you would subscribe. I could use subscribers. And I don't know what else to say, but I hope you come back and look at some of my other videos. And I hope you subscribe. Thanks.